don't I feel like myself right now? Why do I feel numb? Why am I exhausted for no reason? Why do I feel disconnected from everyone, even from myself? If you've been asking these questions lately, if something inside you feels heavy or strange or unfamiliar, then this video is for you. Stay with me because I'm going to walk you through something important, something nobody ever tells you. You're not broken, you're not failing, and you're definitely not losing yourself. I've been where you are, and what you're feeling, all of it, is actually a sign that something in you is trying to grow. You're not shutting down, you're shifting. And once you understand what that means, everything inside you will start to make sense again. So take a breath, let your shoulders drop, and let me walk you through this gently. There is a moment in every human life where the noise becomes too loud and the soul becomes too quiet. A moment where you look at your own reflection and whisper to yourself, I don't feel like me. If you are here, watching this, listening to this, breathing through this, then this message has found you at the exact moment you needed it. Because I want to tell you something gently, softly, without pressure or fear. You're not losing yourself. You're changing, and I know that doesn't make it easier. I know that doesn't silence the noise. But change rarely introduces itself with clarity. It usually arrives looking like confusion, numbness, overwhelm, sudden tiredness, feeling disconnected from the world, or feeling strangely distant from your own life. Maybe lately, you've been asking yourself questions you never used to ask. Why do I feel so strange? Why do I feel so tired? Why do I feel nothing at all? Why do I feel everything at once? Why do I feel like a different person, but I don't know who that person is? If that's you, you're not alone. Not even for a heartbeat. Millions of people across the world are feeling this exact shift. Not because the world is breaking, but because you're outgrowing a version of yourself that was too small for the soul you're becoming. And outgrowing hurts. Not always loudly, but deeply. It feels like restlessness, like unease, like questioning everything you thought you knew. It feels like standing in your own life and sensing that something invisible is moving underneath the surface. It feels like your spirit quietly whispering, there is more for you than this. But you haven't stepped into the more yet, so you're caught in the in-between. Not who you were, not yet who you're becoming. And the in-between always feels like losing yourself. So let me say this with warmth. You're not broken. You're in transition, you're molting, shedding, rearranging, repatterning, slowing down so you don't carry old wounds into new chapters. You're not falling apart. You're rearranging into alignment. And I know it feels scary to not recognize yourself. It feels unsettling to not know your next step. It feels confusing to love people differently, to want different things, to see the world differently than you did even a few months ago. But that's not failure. That's evolution. Even the strongest souls break into softness before they grow into certainty. Even the brightest lights dim before they transform. Even the most awakened hearts go quiet before they speak again. This is not the end of you. This is the deep breath before your next beginning. You don't need all the answers right now. You don't need the whole map. You don't need to rush your healing or push your becoming. You just need this moment, one breath. Because no matter how lost you feel, there is a part of you, quiet, steady, ancient, that has never been lost. Not once. That part of you is holding your becoming even when your mind cannot understand what's happening. You are allowed to not know who you are right now. You are allowed to feel confused. You are allowed to feel numb or overwhelmed. You are allowed to need rest, silence, stillness, slowness. You are allowed to simply be human. And you are allowed to change. You are allowed to change. And I know that sentence sounds small, but letting yourself change is one of the bravest things you will ever do. Because when you change, you risk disappointing the people who only knew an older version of you. You risk confusing the people who benefited from your silence, your self-abandoning, your tolerance of things that hurt your spirit. You risk losing the relationships that were only strong because you were weak. But you also risk something else, something far more beautiful. You risk growing into someone you actually recognize, someone your soul has been waiting for, someone who breathes differently, someone whose eyes hold honesty again. And it's okay that this phase feels uncomfortable. Growth never feels like growth when you're inside it. It feels like tiredness, emotional static, numbness, detachment, irritation, overthinking, questioning everything and nothing making sense. It feels like losing the plot of your own life. It feels like you're about to break. But listen to me gently. Breaking and opening feel very similar in the beginning. You're not collapsing, you're cracking open. Your soul is trying to give you more room, more space, more air, more truth. But your mind doesn't know how to interpret that yet, so it panics. It sends noise, it sends fear, it sends doubt. Your mind says, "What's happening to me? Why don't I feel like myself? Why can't I feel anything? Why am I overwhelmed with everything? Why does life suddenly feel different?" But your soul, in its steady old wisdom, is saying, "Shh, you're becoming." You may not feel spiritual right now. You may not feel strong. You may not feel centered or motivated or grounded. You may even feel like you're going backwards. But transitions are messy, and healing is not gentle. And growth is rarely aesthetic. It's raw, it's uncomfortable, it's confusing, it's emotional. It's silent, it's loud. It's everything at once and nothing at all, and that's okay. You do not need to apologize for being human. You do not need to rush this. You do not need to fix yourself. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply sit with who you are while the old version of you unravels. You're not meant to understand this phase. You're meant to move through it. You're meant to let it wash over you without deciding it means something bad. You're meant to trust that your soul knows what it's doing, even when your mind is scared. Let me remind you of something important. You're not supposed to feel clear in the middle of a transformation. You're supposed to feel stretched. You're supposed to feel uncertain. You're supposed to feel uncomfortable. You're supposed to feel the walls of your old life pressing too tightly around you because you've outgrown them. Your spirit is trying to rise into a bigger version of your life than the one you've been living. And that kind of rise is never clean. It's a little chaotic, a little blurry, a little frightening, but it is not wrong. It is not a mistake. It is not a failure. It is not a collapse. It is an invitation, a sacred one. The kind that only arrives when you're ready for more, even if you don't feel ready. And if you're watching this, if these words are finding you now, then somewhere inside you, there is a door opening. You can't see it yet. You can't name it yet. You can't understand it yet, but you can feel it. A quiet shift, a soft pull, a subtle ache for something you can't describe. That is awakening, not the dramatic kind, the real kind. The kind that arrives tenderly when you are exhausted. The kind that says, you don't have to fight anymore. Just let yourself become. You don't need to have a plan. You don't need to know your path. You don't need to rush into answers. You just need to breathe and let this version of you settle. Because there is a new chapter on the other side of this discomfort. One that belongs to you. And you are closer to it than you think. Stay with me as we talk little more. There comes a point in every transformation where your soul outgrows the life around you before your mind can catch up. And that's where the deepest discomfort comes from. It's not that something is wrong. It's that something is shifting inside you quietly, deliberately, beautifully. You're not meant to stay the same forever. You're meant to rise, to evolve, to shed old skins and step into new spaces. But that process feels like loss before it feels like liberation. It feels like losing interest in things that once comforted you, outgrowing people you thought were permanent, feeling misunderstood, wanting more silence and less noise, craving simplicity, questioning your direction, feeling emotionally far away, sensing something big is coming, even if you don't know what it is. When your soul grows, your life feels tight. Like wearing clothes that no longer fit, and your mind interprets that tightness as, I'm failing, I'm broken, I'm falling apart. You're not. You're simply outgrowing who you used to be. Your soul is asking for space. Space to breathe, space to expand, space to remember who you really are beneath the layers of noise, expectation, and survival mode. You are not meant to stay folded forever. You're meant to unfold piece by piece, breath by breath, moment by moment. Sometimes the unfolding is gentle. Sometimes it's sharp. Sometimes it's confusing. But it is always necessary, because the life you're growing into does not look like the life you're growing out of. Your old patterns cannot follow you. Your old fears cannot stay. Your old wounds cannot lead. Your old identities cannot remain in charge. There are days where you'll resist this, where you'll cling to who you were because it's familiar, safe, known. Change feels like walking into a corridor with the lights off. You want to run back to the room you came from, even if that room was too small and suffocating and untrue. But something in you knows you can't stay there anymore. You've outgrown it, and growth never asks permission. It just begins, quietly, relentlessly, lovingly. This is why you feel disconnected. This is why you feel numb. This is why you feel restless. This is why you feel overwhelmed. This is why you feel like crying and don't know why. This is why your emotions come in waves. You're not malfunctioning. You're recalibrating. Your soul is rearranging your inner world, so your outer world can eventually match it. You are becoming someone new. Someone truer, someone softer, someone stronger in ways that don't require hardness. You're becoming someone who sees more, feels more, respects themselves more, speaks up more, lives more honestly, loves more deeply. You're becoming someone who's no longer willing to live on emotional autopilot. This phase is not a punishment, it's a preparation. Your soul drags you away from what you've outgrown long before your mind understands why. Sometimes this looks like losing friendships. Sometimes it looks like losing motivation. Sometimes it looks like losing direction. Sometimes it looks like losing the old version of yourself. But you're not losing anything essential. You're losing what cannot come with you. And I want you to hear this clearly. Not as inspiration, but as truth. If you were truly meant to stay as you were, you wouldn't feel this shift so deeply. Your discomfort is a sign. Your numbness is a sign. Your restlessness is a sign. Your exhaustion is a sign. They are symptoms of growth, not evidence of failure. This moment in your life is not meant to break you. It is meant to open you to deeper truths, wider paths, gentler relationships, clearer boundaries, and a version of yourself who isn't living in survival mode anymore. You are becoming someone who can breathe again. And even if you can't feel it today, you are moving forward, quietly, slowly, beautifully. Your soul is guiding you with more precision than your mind has ever understood. You're not lost, you're transitioning. And transitions always feel like endings before they reveal themselves as beginnings. You're right where you need to be, even if you don't understand why, especially then. There is a phase in every transformation that feels like nothing. No emotion, no motivation, no inspiration, no clear thoughts. Just stillness, and most people panic when they reach this part. They think, I'm shutting down, I'm going backwards, I've lost my spark. I don't feel anything. What's wrong with me? But let me say this gently, because you need to hear it softly. Stillness is not emptiness. Stillness is recalibration. You're not shutting down. You're resetting. Your spirit has been carrying emotions you didn't even realize were heavy. Your body has been moving through survival longer than your mind can remember. Your heart has been holding stories that were never yours to keep. And when your soul decides that it's time to release all of that, it pulls you inward. Into silence, into pause, into stillness, not to punish you, not to freeze you, but to prepare you. Imagine a snow globe that has been shaken for years, thoughts swirling, emotions swirling, memories swirling, expectations swirling. Your soul isn't trying to keep the storm going. It's trying to let everything settle. Stillness is the moment the snow finally begins to fall, the moment the chaos softens, the moment the noise quietens, the moment your deeper self steps forward and whispers, "Let me take it from here." And I know this quiet can feel frightening. Humans are used to movement, to answers, to noise, to certainty. Stillness feels like drowning to someone who's been running their whole life. But please remember this. Nothing is broken inside you. You are just not meant to bloom in every season. There are seasons for rising, and seasons for rooting, seasons for action, and seasons for integration, seasons for speaking, and seasons for silence. You do not grow petals in the same moment you grow roots. Your soul knows what season you are in even when you don't. And right now, for many people, for you, for the collective, this is a season of stillness. A season of recalibrating identity, of shedding expectations, of letting go of old versions, of breathing between chapters. A season where your spirit says, let the old part of you rest. They've carried you far enough. When you feel numb, you are not empty. You are healing. When you feel disconnected, you are not broken. You are rearranging. When you feel tired, you are not weak. You are being restored. When you feel lost, you are not behind. You are shifting direction. When you feel confused, you are not failing. You are approaching clarity. Stillness is the cocoon before the wings. And nobody talks about the cocoon stage because it doesn't look beautiful or dramatic or inspiring. The cocoon is quiet. It's dark. It's small, it's confusing. The caterpillar has no idea it's becoming a butterfly. It only knows everything is dissolving. You feel the same because transformation feels identical to loss until the wings appear. And here's the truth most people forget. You do not need to understand stillness for it to be working. You just need to surrender to it. To trust that your soul is doing work your mind cannot comprehend yet. To trust that the quiet won't last forever. To trust that numbness is not permanent. To trust that confusion is part of clarity. To trust that rest is not regression. To trust that silence is not the absence of growth, but the birthplace of it. You are allowed to rest here. You are allowed to not know. You are allowed to wait without apology. You are allowed to simply exist. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to rush your healing. You don't need to perform strength. You just need to breathe and let the stillness do its work. This phase is not the end of your story. It is the page your soul is writing quietly before it turns the next one. And when the stillness passes, because it will, you will rise with a clarity that makes this moment make sense. One day you'll look back and realize this was not the moment you lost yourself. It was the moment you began to find yourself again. There is another part of this journey that almost everyone experiences, but very few people talk about. It's the moment you stand in your own life and quietly admit to yourself, I don't know who I am anymore. Not in a dramatic way, not in a hopeless way, but in that soft, aching, almost whispered way that comes from deep exhaustion. If that has been you lately, let me say this clearly and lovingly. Not knowing who you are right now is not a failure. It is a beginning. Identity shifts are not clean. They're not tidy or aesthetic or poetic. They're messy in a gentle way. They feel like walking through a doorway while blindfolded. You are aware of the steps, but you can't see the room you're entering yet. And that's okay, because your identity is not something you lose. It's something you grow into. The you that you feel slipping away was never permanent. It was a chapter, a season, a skin. You were never meant to stay that person forever. You were meant to update, to evolve, to meet new versions of yourself as you move through your life. But nobody warns you that becoming someone new feels like losing the old you before the new one arrives. It feels like, I don't know what I want anymore. I don't know who I'm becoming. I don't recognize myself. My emotions feel different. My values feel different. My energy is different. This is not disconnection. This is growth without a name yet. Your identity is not disappearing. It is expanding. And expansion feels like emptiness before it feels like clarity. You are not meant to know the next version of yourself before you grow into them. Imagine a seed trying to describe its future leaves. It can't. It doesn't have the language yet. But that does not stop the leaves from forming. It does not stop the roots from strengthening. It does not stop the growth. In the same way, you cannot yet describe the version of you who is emerging. But that does not stop them from forming right now. It does not stop their clarity from developing in silence. It does not stop their truth from rising inside you. The confusion you feel is not a sign to stop. It is a sign that something new is working its way to the surface. You are shedding versions of yourself that were built from survival, from fear, from old stories, from expectations, from wounds you didn't deserve, from roles you never should have carried. And your soul is saying, no more. We are not staying small. We are not staying quiet. We are not staying hidden. We are not pretending anymore. And the moment your soul makes that decision, your old identity crumbles. Not because it was bad, but because it was complete. Your next self will not be built from fear. They will be built from truth. Your next self will not be shaped by old wounds. They will be shaped by healing. Your next self will not walk like someone surviving. They will walk like someone becoming. And yes, it's okay that this phase feels uncertain. It's okay that you feel like a stranger in your own life. Uncertainty is the bridge between the person you were and the person you're growing into. You don't need to rush this bridge. You don't need to run across it. You don't need to force answers or force clarity or force direction. Direction comes when the heart is quiet enough to hear itself again. And right now, your heart is rearranging itself. You may not recognize yourself today, but you will recognize who you are becoming. And when you do, you'll realize this wasn't a breakdown. This was alignment. This wasn't the end. This was the unveiling. This wasn't you disappearing. This was you returning to the self you were always meant to meet. You are not lost. You are being rewritten with more truth and more softness than you've ever allowed yourself to have before. And you're doing beautifully. One of the hardest parts of this whole journey is the fear of what comes next. not knowing the path ahead, not knowing what you're becoming, not knowing how things will unfold, not knowing if you're making the right choices. And when life feels uncertain, your mind begins to panic. It whispers, what if I'm going the wrong way? What if I never feel like myself again? What if I never find clarity? What if this numbness never ends? What if I'm wasting time? What if I ruin everything? What if I never feel stable again? Let me place a gentle truth in your hands. You are not moving toward destruction. You are moving toward alignment. And alignment always feels terrifying before it feels peaceful. Not because it's dangerous, but because it's unfamiliar. Your mind has spent years building safety around the known, even when the known was hurting you. Anything new, even healing, even growth, even awakening, feels unsafe to a mind that has lived in survival mode. But your soul is not afraid of the future. Your soul is already standing in it, and it is calling you forward one small step at a time. The fear you feel is not intuition. It's not a warning. It's not a prophecy. It's not a sign that something is wrong. It's simply your nervous system trying to protect you from moment after moment of unknown. Fear is a habit, not a truth. You have survived more than your fear remembers. You have risen through more storms than your mind gives you credit for. You have walked through nights that would have broken someone with a weaker soul. And you're still here, still breathing, still growing, still reaching, still fighting to understand yourself. Fear only feels big when you forget how strong you've been. So let me remind you, you have made it through every worst moment you thought you wouldn't survive. And you didn't survive by accident. You survived because you have a soul that refuses to collapse. A soul that is stronger than the storms inside you. A soul that has waited lifetimes to reach the chapter you're entering now. This transition is not a threat, it's a threshold. You are stepping into a timeline where your truth becomes louder than your fear. And yes, it feels strange now. It feels wobbly. It feels unreal. It feels foggy. It feels like trying to walk without the lights on. But that's how all new paths feel in the beginning. The future is not meant to be seen clearly before you walk into it. If you saw the whole picture, you would try to control it, or perfect it, or avoid it, or run from it, or cling too tightly. Life protects you by only showing one step at a time. And listen closely. That one step is always enough. You don't need a 5-year plan. You don't need every answer. You don't need to know the destination. You don't need to feel ready. You just need to keep breathing and keep allowing change to happen instead of resisting it. Your fear doesn't mean stop. It means soften. Soften your shoulders. Soften your breath. Soften your expectations. Soften your judgment of yourself. Soften the pressure you carry. Fear shrinks when you shrink with it. But fear dissolves when you stay gentle in its presence. Trust this. Your future self is watching you with pride, not fear. They are not worried. They are not panicking. They are not doubting your path. They are whispering, keep going. You're coming home to me. And one day, not long from now, you will look back on this exact moment and realize something extraordinary. You weren't falling apart. You were walking through the doorway that leads to who you were always meant to become. There is something else you need to hear. Something people rarely talk about because it feels too messy, too out of control, too hard to explain. It's the emotional waves, the moments where out of nowhere you feel everything all at once. Then suddenly you feel nothing. Then suddenly you're sensitive to every sound, every tone, every tiny shift in someone's energy. Then suddenly you're irritable, overwhelmed, on the edge of tears without knowing why. Then suddenly you're calm again like nothing happened. These waves aren't random. They aren't signs of instability. They aren't signs you're too emotional. They aren't signs you're not coping. These emotional waves are the pressure valves of transformation. Your nervous system is resetting. Your heart is unlearning old defenses. Your soul is clearing out the emotional dust that has been sitting in corners you haven't touched in years. When your spirit grows, your emotions follow, and they rarely move quietly. They move like tides. This is not chaos. This is cleansing. Let me break it down gently. The wave of intensity. This is when everything hits you at once. Old memories, old wounds, thoughts you didn't want, feelings you didn't expect. Your soul is pulling emotional debris to the surface so it can finally leave your system. Intensity is not punishment, it is release. The wave of numbness. This is when you feel nothing. No sadness, no joy. No clarity, just stillness. Numbness is not a failure. It is your spirit saying, I need a moment. Let me catch up, let me breathe. It is the pause between emotional tides, a necessary reset before the next release. The wave of sensitivity. This is when you notice everything, every tone, every shift in energy, every small detail that others overlook. This is not weakness, this is awareness. Your intuition is sharpening, your empathy is expanding, your spirit is becoming more attuned to what aligns with you and what does not. Sensitivity is a superpower you haven't learned to trust yet. The wave of overwhelm. This is when simple tasks feel heavy, when small decisions feel big, when being around people feels like too much noise. This is not regression, this is nervous system recalibration. Your body is learning how to exist without tension you've carried for years. Overwhelm is your system trying to find a new baseline that matches who you are becoming. The wave of sudden tears. These moments come without warning. In the car, before bed, in the shower, in the middle of a conversation. You're not overreacting, you're releasing. Tears are the exit route for emotions that were never meant to stay inside you. The soul heals at the pace the heart cries. The wave of calm, and then quiet. Clear, soft, still. This calm is not emptiness. It's integration. Your system has shifted without you realizing it. This is the moment where your heart rebalances, your energy resets, your spirit settles into its new shape. But because humans expect clarity to be loud, you don't recognize calm as progress. You're so used to surviving that peace feels suspicious. But this calm is proof that you are healing. Let me tell you something important. You are not too emotional. You are not unstable. You are not dramatic. You are not falling apart. You're healing in real time. Your emotional waves are not a flaw. They are not a weakness. They are a sign that your soul is doing deep structural work. You are releasing old identities, old expectations, old disappointments, old versions of love, old versions of strength, old versions of yourself. And release does not happen in silence. It happens in waves. You do not need to suppress them. You do not need to apologize for them. You do not need to fear them. They are not here to drown you. They are here to free you. Your emotions move because you are moving. And when the waves settle, because they will, you will realize something extraordinary. Every wave brought you closer to a version of yourself you didn't know was possible. A version of you who feels, who breathes, who loves, who understands, who sees clearly, who isn't numb to their own life anymore. A version of you who is finally alive in their own skin. The waves are not the problem, they are the doorway. One of the most confusing parts of inner transformation is when you start to feel disconnected from the people around you. Not because something happened, not because there was an argument, not because you suddenly dislike anyone, but because your energy is shifting faster than your relationships can understand. And this can feel frightening. You may look at the people in your life and think, why don't I feel close to anyone right now? Why does everyone feel distant? Why do I want to be alone? Why do conversations feel heavy? Why do I feel unseen even around people who love me? Why do I crave silence more than connection? Let me say this gently. You're not withdrawing from people. You're returning to yourself, and the return journey requires spaciousness. Your soul is asking for oxygen. Not isolation, not loneliness, not disconnection, just space. Space to hear your own voice. Space to feel your own emotions. Space to understand who you're becoming. Space to breathe without being shaped by other people's expectations. When you're in a deep internal shift, your spirit becomes sensitive to anything that pulls you away from alignment. That includes small talk that drains you, conversations that don't go deeper, relationships built on old versions of you, people who don't listen, environments that feel loud, dynamics where you shrink yourself, roles you no longer want to play, energy that feels heavy or demanding. This disconnect is not judgment. It's not rejection. It's not selfishness. It's your soul saying, I need room to grow. When your inner world expands, your outer world feels tight, and humans often mistake that tightness for loneliness. But it's not loneliness, it's emotional detox. You are feeling the difference between genuine connection and familiar noise. This is why you crave solitude right now. It's why you want quiet time. It's why you don't want to be on for people the way you used to. Your spirit is rewriting your boundaries before your mind knows how to articulate them. And yes, some connections may fade during this phase. Not because you stopped caring, not because anything went wrong, but because you can't carry relationships that only connect to the version of you you're shedding. Your new self cannot be held inside old dynamics. And that is okay. Some people will walk with you into the next chapter. Some will love you from afar. Some will quietly drift away because your energies no longer match. This is not loss. This is alignment. You are not meant to keep everyone. You are meant to keep the ones who see you clearly as you grow. The ones who don't panic when you need distance. The ones who don't take your silence personally. The ones who allow you to become without pulling you back into who you were. And here is something important to remember. Your desire to be alone right now is not rejection of others. It's acceptance of yourself. You're learning how to exist without leaning on people for identity. You're learning how to hold your own emotions instead of outsourcing your comfort. You're learning how to breathe without feeling responsible for everyone else's happiness. You're learning how to be present without performing. You're learning how to protect your energy without apology. And during that process, you will naturally take a step back. Not forever, not out of fear, not out of avoidance, but because inner growth requires a quieter stage than the one you're used to standing on. This is your season of inwardness, of gentle retreat, of clarity forming in silence, of boundaries forming without effort, of letting your nervous system rest from constant interaction. And one day soon, you will feel the shift again. You will wake up with more space in your chest, more breath in your lungs, more trust in your voice, more desire for connection that feels real and grounded. You will return to people, not because you need them, but because your energy is ready to meet the world again with clarity instead of overwhelm. This phase of disconnection is not the end of your relationships. It is the beginning of healthier ones. It is the transition between the self that needed everyone and the self that can finally choose who is good for your soul. You are not drifting away. You are slowly, gently, beautifully coming home to yourself. There is something tender and powerful you need to remember as you move through this. Nothing is wrong with you. You are awakening, not the dramatic kind people talk about online, not the aesthetic kind, not the loud kind, the real kind, the kind that happens in silence, in confusion, in tiredness, in numbness, in emotional waves, in late-night thoughts, in quiet mornings, in small realizations. Awakening doesn't feel like enlightenment in the moment. It feels like uncertainty. It feels like heaviness. It feels like questioning everything. It feels like wanting more from your life, even if you don't know what more is yet. But let me tell you something softly. Your soul has never been more active than it is right now. Even if you feel low, even if you feel lost, even if you feel empty, even if you feel strange in your own body, even if you feel disconnected, your spirit is working underneath all of that. Your soul is clearing out room that you will need for what's coming next. But because you can't see the outcome yet, your mind tells you it's all falling apart. It's not. This is a clearing phase, a dissolving phase, a realignment phase, a shedding phase, a recalibration phase. This is the part of the story where everything looks blurry right before it becomes beautiful. You just can't see the beauty yet because the dust hasn't settled. And that's okay. You don't need to rush clarity. Clarity isn't a reward, it's a result. It arrives when your inner world becomes quiet enough to hear itself again. So how do you trust the process when everything feels uncertain? Not by forcing trust, not by pretending to be okay, not by silencing your emotions, not by acting strong. You trust the process by softening into it, by letting the moment be what it is without judging yourself. You trust it by saying, I don't know what's happening, but I'm willing to let it unfold. You trust it by allowing yourself to rest when your body is tired. You trust it by letting yourself feel when your emotions rise. You trust it by not rushing out of discomfort just because it feels unfamiliar. You trust it by letting go of timelines and expectations and the pressure to have it all figured out. Your soul is not following a calendar, it's following truth. And truth unfolds on its own schedule. Let me give you a little grounding visual, something your heart can hold on to when your mind starts spiraling. Imagine you are walking through a forest at dusk. The path is dim, you cannot see far ahead, but you can see just enough to take one step. And that is all you need. One step, not 10, not 20, not the whole journey. Just the next step. Life works the same way. Your soul only ever gives you the next step because that is the only step you are meant to handle today. You don't need to know the destination. You don't need to know the timing. You don't need to know who you will be 3 months from now, or where your life is going, or what decisions you will make next year. You just need to trust that the same inner wisdom that got you through every dark moment will carry you through this one too. And it will. Because here's the truth. You have never walked a path that was too big for your soul. Even when you felt small, even when you felt lost, even when you had no idea what you were doing, you always landed exactly where you were meant to. This moment is no different. Your future is not slipping away from you. It is waiting for you to finish this inner transition so you can meet it fully. There is a version of you in the future who looks back at this exact moment with gratitude, not fear, because they will see what you cannot see yet. This was the chapter that changed everything. This was the moment you came back to yourself. This was the beginning of who you were always meant to become. And you are already on your way. I want to leave you with something gentle, something true. Something your heart may have forgotten under the weight of everything you've been carrying. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are not broken. You are becoming. Becoming is not a straight line. It's not a plan. It's not a timeline you can map out or a checklist you can rush through. Becoming is a soft rearranging, a quiet unfolding, a gradual remembering of who you were before the world told you who to be. And that process takes patience, tenderness, compassion, and time. You are changing because you were never meant to stay hidden inside a version of yourself that was built from survival. You are meant to live as the version of you built from truth. The version of you who breathes without guilt, who rests without apology, who feels without shame, who speaks without fear, who loves without shrinking, who grows without asking permission. You are meant to become someone who doesn't betray themselves just to be accepted. Someone who doesn't dim their light just to keep the peace. Someone who doesn't abandon their needs just to make others comfortable. Someone who knows that their softness is strength and their sensitivity is wisdom. Right now, your soul is guiding you back to that person. You may not feel them yet. You may not see them yet. You may not understand them yet. But you are walking toward them with every breath you take. So please, be gentle with yourself. Be patient with yourself. Be forgiving with yourself. Be curious with yourself. You don't have to rush this. You don't have to fix anything. You don't have to fight your own becoming. You only have to stay with yourself through the process. Stay with yourself when you're tired. Stay with yourself when you're numb. Stay with yourself when you're overwhelmed. Stay with yourself when you feel far from everyone. Stay with yourself when your direction feels blurry. Stay with yourself when your heart feels heavy. Stay with yourself when everything inside you is rearranging. Because one day you will wake up with a new clarity, a new softness, a new strength, a new sense of who you are and what you want and where you're going. And you will realize that nothing was lost. Not your spark, not your identity, not your joy, not your purpose, not your future, not yourself. All of it was simply growing in ways you could not yet understand. And you were never alone in that process. Not for a single moment. You have walked through everything your soul has asked of you. You have made it through every dark night your strength never claimed credit for. You have survived storms your mind has already forgotten. And now? Now you're entering a chapter where surviving is no longer the goal. Living is not performing, not pleasing, not pretending, not shrinking, not hiding. Living fully, softly, honestly, bravely, gently. And this transition you're in right now, this confusion, this fog, this discomfort, is the doorway to that life. You are not losing yourself. You are meeting yourself, and you're doing beautifully. If this message found you today, if it helped you take even one deeper breath, if it reminded you that you're not broken, then let this be your sign to stay close to your becoming. And if you need a place that speaks to your soul gently while you grow, you're welcome here, always. This has been Valkyrie. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps other people see this video, people who may need to hear it. Be kind to yourself and others. Thanks you for stopping by. Until next time.